Attack.
What are the main policies you're running on, and how do you plan to implement those policies? Golden Dude, you have 1 minute. Please go ahead.
Okay, so one of our main policies is working to boost the economy by using the government's actual money, the 20 million they have, to help support small businesses by using subsidies and grants to help actually incentivize people to get a job in a small business. So we can help grow the economy by helping small businesses. That will help people get more money, so then we can have more products and so on in the economy. And with that, helping grow small businesses helps us have more competition and so on, which helps everyone, which is really... Other things we're working on is, reform in the departments. We really need reform in the departments so that the government actually funds the departments, like the DHS. Right now we're having the crisis with no police officers, and we need more police officers. And
Dude, that is the minute. We will wrap back around. Andy, what are the main policies you're running on, and how do you plan to implement those policies? Please go ahead. 1 minute.
Well, first, I want to thank you for moderating today. I know this couldn't have been done without you. I want to thank everyone here for coming. The main policies I'm running on are what I call kitchen table politics. It's what's putting money in your pockets. That means employment, and that means cheaper property. How are we going to address that? Let's start with the property. To get cheaper property for new players and lower middle class players, we're going to do two things. We're going to address the supply and the demand. With the supply, we're going to make it so, with the supply, we're going to make it so the government is going to do government contracting, right? Specifically for lower income apartments and housing. This will also create jobs because if you're a contractor, you don't need as many hours. And for the demand, we're going to lower the property tax threshold and increase the property tax. That way, our largest landowners cannot keep gobbling up the property new players need. Thank you.
Andy, that was your 1 minute. We'll move on to Golden Dude. If you do not get elected, how do you plan on implementing your ideas? Please go ahead. 1 minute again.
Well, if I don't get elected, I plan to work, we in the party plan to work with our elected representatives right now to help pass legislation to help implement what we have in our party platform, which, as I said earlier, is helping boost the economy along with our other things with willow reform, tenants' rights, most importantly, workers' rights, department reform, and we want to work to incentivize trades as well to help boost employment. So, yeah, we want to work to address the concerns of the people and ensure that there's public forums so we can talk to the people. We want to ensure that the government is working for the people and that the people are involved in decision making by being able to contact us and so on. So we really want to, even if I'm not elected, I want to make sure that I'm reaching out to players and new players about their concerns so we can tell the party, and then the party can work with the representatives we have and other people in Congress to help implement legislation that makes meaningful change.
All right, Golden. That's the 1 minute there. Andy, how will you implement your ideas if you do not get elected?
Well, first, I do want to address something that we're going to see throughout today's debate. My fellow candidate Golden is going to be talking a lot about his party and what his party is going to do. Many of you may know I'm running as independent. I'm running off of my experience and what I'm able to do, right? So I am a political consultant. I own a political consulting group. My entire time in D.C. has been spent lobbying Congress, working with both chambers, getting bills passed from outside of the House. And we've seen that the WPR, although they've done great things, you have some great policies, they still need work on passing those bills. They have a current bill, the Workers' Rights Bill, it's failing in the Senate. And they just couldn't get people to rally behind it enough. That is something that will not happen, whether I'm in the Senate or not in the Senate, with the policies I am backing. Thank you.
All right, a little bit under the minute, but that's fine. We'll move on to our next question here. Since it came up, There was a WPR bill titled the Workers' Rights Act. It did fail to pass in the Senate. What I want to know is how would you have voted for this bill and why? Golden Dude, please.
I would have most certainly voted yes. This bill is such an important bill to help reinforcing the rights of our workers. I've seen so many legal cases where people have been fired for little to no reason, and the court basically can't help them because in the current laws we have, all the employer needs is any reason. It doesn't have to be proven, it doesn't have to be legitimate, just any single reason, and then they can fire them. That is just not fair, and it's certainly not just or anything that we should aim to have in our law. It's really important that legislation to help empower our workers and make sure that they are not fired for who they are or what they say and so on. Well, in some circumstances, but it's not fair that the employers can simply fire them for any reason they like, which is horrible. It's not fair, it's unjust, and it shouldn't be allowed. Thank you.
All right, that's your 1 minute, Andy. It's on to you. A WPR bill titled the Workers' Rights Act failed to pass in the Senate. How would you have voted for this bill and why?
Look,
Your 1 minute starts now.
We're hearing a lot of rhetoric, we're hearing a lot of words, but I'm running a campaign of practicalities here. Now, I want to be clear. It's a difficult question when a senator has to answer, do I support this bill? The Senate is the House of Review. And so what I would have done with this bill is, quite frankly, I support the bill. I support the idea behind it. I've said this before, I'll say it again. But I think it needed improvement. I believe it needed to be, quite frankly, a better bill. It needed to be more specific. Its definitions more narrow. Because so much of it was undefined. I know representatives who wanted it to pass just so they could fight it in court, just to cause litigation. Because that would further their own goal. And I think any bill that has that kind of support behind it definitely needs a second look. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Move on to our next question here. New players in the impoverished, those who do not have a lot of funds, that portion of the population is susceptible to poor working conditions. How would you like to help with this, or how would you plan on helping this group? Golden Dude, please go ahead.
Well, I really think what we've said is we want to help implement laws which help reinforce workers to have unions. Unions are really important because they give the people the ability to have their say with their employers about how they want to work, how much they're going to get paid, and so on. And also, to help workers, we want to work on trade incentivization. So that means when you are in a trade and so on, and you level up, you get money, you get rewarded for that. So that you're actually rewarded for making an effort to work in your job, rather than just getting paid on how much you work, like how many minutes or so on. And yeah, like as I said earlier, boosting small businesses and so on with grants and subsidies from the government will help employers be able to pay their workers better and so on. Very funny.
No.
Thank you, Golden. Andy, we'll go ahead and move on to you in this. New players and the impoverished players represent a population susceptible to poor working conditions. How do you plan on helping this group of people?
Thank you for the question. I'm sorry I laughed. It was just I've been talking about this my entire campaign. It's been really the main thing I've been campaigning on. This is the first time I heard it from my fellow candidate. I talked with the cabinet, I think earlier today, about this proposal about government subsidies and government contracting. What this is going to do, it's going to address the supply side of labor, because yes, we could have unions, we could have all these protections, but the fact of the matter is that's a band-aid. We need to get to the root of the issue, and that means increasing managing the supply of the labor and the supply of jobs. The more jobs are available, the more leverage the workers, the new players, the lower middle class will have over these big businesses. And I think my candidate needs to address that as well. as well as the contracting and the subsidies, and that is exactly what I plan to do.
All right, that is your minute. We'll move on to the next one, and I'm actually going to move on to some community questions I was submitted here.
Nice.
Let's see. I like this one. Omega Beeble would like to ask, I guess, what are your opinions on banks, their function and importance inside of the economy? And this wasn't necessarily part of his question. I'm adding on, but will we plan on seeing any? What's the word I'm looking for?
Reform?
I guess yes. Do we plan on seeing any reform in terms of banks or anything like that from either of you? Golden Dude, you have 1 minute. Please go ahead and let me know if I need to restate the question. I'm sorry.
Well, what we think we need to do is implement a tax on the bank balances so that you can't simply put all your money in a bank so you can escape paying tax and contributing to the money in the government. Yes, like Omega has said before, I've heard him that. He says banks serve a purpose.
Shit.
Oh shit, what happened? Oh,
sorry. Can we stop the time? Golden will get the opportunity to answer, I hope.
Yeah.
Everyone was just fucking slaughtered.
Where are the police to protect us? Lovely. Now we need to get all the way back. What was the coordinates for the place again?
C572.
C572. No, let me see how to get there.
And Dinah, once everyone gets back and settled, you can restate the question and he'll restate his answer. Just to keep it fair for everyone.
Let me know when everybody's ready.
I think once the candidates are back, everyone else can start coming in. Should I board up the thing once enough people are in? Like, should I block the entrances? That's a lot of work. I think most people are back. We can continue. Dinah, can you restate the question for Golden?
Yes, absolutely. And I just want everyone to know it was pointed out to me that I've been putting Golden Dude on the spot first here every time. That was not intentional. I will be swapping back and forth after this question. So apologies to everyone on that matter.
Rory said go to Merkel bus on Gray Line. Apparently that's the closest one, I assume.
So the question is about banks, their function and their importance in the economy, and do you have any plans for regulation in that regard? So Golden Dude, we will start with you this time, but next time we'll flip it up.
Yeah, you can start with me for a couple times in a row if you wanted to.
Okay, do you want me to start now?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Well, we want to implement simply a tax on bank account balances because you shouldn't be able to put all your money in a bank to escape tax, paying the tax to contribute to the economy and how the government functions. Some argue that having a tax on the bank will not incentivize people to go to the bank, but we want to have a slightly lower tax than account taxes, so there's still incentive to go to a bank. But still, you shouldn't be able to escape all your tax just being able to put money in the bank. And banks are still really important to the economy and our nation because they help with the flow of money and so on and loans, and they help support small businesses. But you shouldn't just be able to escape paying that tax and contributing.
God damn it. God. I gotta take out my shotgun. Got him.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Did you have any more comments in that regard, Golden?
No, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, absolutely.
Sum, are you running? Can you? Thank you.
Okay, Andy, are you ready?
God damn it! Stop shooting!
Sorry, still not even there.
All right. The question is basically banks. What we doing with those? Right. That's the question. What's up with banks?
Yes, banks, their function, their importance to the economy, and do you have any regulation plan for them?
All right. I think we ought to remember how most banks make their money. They make their money through fees and through taking the deposits and reinvesting with them. And I think a tax on the banks themselves, not necessarily on the accounts of the banks. We're not touching account money, and we're not touching the depositors' money. We're going with the banks. How would the banks address this? Basically, they're just gonna keep investing. They're gonna keep, with the same fees. They're making the money. It's going to adapt the way that banks already work. So it's going to keep the incentives for using the banks. It's going to keep banks profitable, and it's still going to make using them more fair for everybody. Oh, that was it, by the way. Sorry. I was distracted trying to kill someone who was killing everybody.
I was quite distracted myself. I'm sorry, everybody.
Can I ban people from the building?
You can trespass them, yeah.
Oh, how do I do that?
I mean, you just put up a sign, I think.
Oh.
Sorry. So, move on to another question I have here from another member of the community. Let's see, we'll do one of these. Omega's asking really good questions.
Shout out Omega.
Okay. So we will start with Andy on this one, as to swap it up. So the normal balance taxes incentivize putting money in banks. The government has more than enough money. Why the bank balance tax if it doesn't incentivize and there is no need to pay anything since the government has enough money?
Well, as I said, I don't intend to tax bank balances. I intend to levy a tax on the banks. And let me be absolutely clear on this. I am not an I hire staffers who are experts in these things. I hire people who know more than me. And that means I'm going to be talking to people who run the banks, but I'm also going to be talking to people whose job it is to regulate the banks. I'm going to be talking to people whose job it is to make the economic system more fair. And so I'm going to build my policy and surround myself with people who know more than me on the matter. But right now, my policy is to put a tax on the bank themselves, not the balances within them. I think that's going to address that problem. Thank you.
Golden Dude, do you need me to restate the question?
Yes, please.
Yes,
That
sir.
would be nice.
So Omega asks, the normal balance tax incentivizes putting money in banks. The government has more than enough money. Why the bank balance tax if it does not incentivize and there's no need to pay anything since the government has enough money?
Well, what I think is that, well, it's still important because it's unjust and not fair that some new players and so on who don't know about banks, that they don't pay, that they still have to pay all this tax. Well, the rich and those people who do have money in banks, they still have to pay tax. And anyway, we have to look at why the government has so much money. Why do they have so much money? Because maybe they need to actually use it and invest in people with that money they have, instead of just having it sitting there and rotting away. Why don't we invest in players, invest in the departments to help fix the issues that are facing us? Investing in land, building more houses and so on, so that players can actually buy houses rather than having to rent and so on with this monopoly that some people have on all the buildings. That's
Yeah,
pretty much
I think we can all agree on that sentiment, Gold. I think that's very good.
Thank you. That's all I have to say.
We have another community question here, and this one is from Kato. And this one, I think, was in reference to some earlier questions. Kato says, there is no real worker class on Redmont. Everyone is either employed in the government, has their own business, or simply supplies a business. What does this quote, protect the workers, talk about?
Can I take that first?
Yes, you may have it first. We'll let Golden Dude sit on it for a second.
Yeah, this has been a big criticism of the WPR and of the working parties. I completely agree with that sentiment. I mean, my policies are meant to protect. When I say lower middle class and the new players, I mean the new players, the people who have just recently gone on, who don't have as much money, who don't have those connections. Those are who I'm addressing. I completely agree with Cato. I think, it's mostly suppliers, it's mostly government workers, and these are the industries that, well, government is an industry, but these are the things that we hope to boost. I think that sentiment among the working parties, like the WPR, is a bit silly, at least to me. My focus is on boosting the new players and setting them up where they can not only boost our economy, but become wealthy and be able to get their feet off the ground.
Golden Dude, it's your question. I'll restate here. Rory DM me. How do I ask a question? Just let me know. Send a message. I can get it out. Or at the end, we will also be taking some community questions directly as well, if you want to chance that. Sorry. So, Golden Dude, the question is: there is no real worker class in Redmont. Everyone is either employed by the government, has their own business, or simply supplies a business. What does this quote, "protect the workers," talk about?
Well, I really think that protecting the workers, meaning that we do have the necessary procedures and so on to help them if there is a situation where they do need help. In the current system, yes, well, lots of us are employed by the government and so on, so we don't really need those protections right now, but in future and so on, what if the businesses grow and so on? We need those protections just to help them, make sure those protections are in law to help players if they need them. Just because the issue isn't here currently does not mean it will be here, not be here in future, because it will be possibly. That's why I think we need to invest in small businesses and so on to help them grow as well. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you.
So I actually got a couple individual questions here. Let's see. Who asked this one? Okay. So I got this one from Omega earlier, and then we'll move on to one someone asked for Andy. Let's see. So Golden, we'll start with you on this one. So Omega asks, why is at-will employment such a problem? Why is it so unfair? This isn't real life. Nobody freezes to death.
Who's taking that first?
Sorry, so this is a question for Golden.
Oh, okay.
So it's referring to firing employees and so on. Well, you have to look at the fairness and the morality of it. A player should know why they're being fired, and they should have protections to help them from being fired for stupid reasons that people can have. You shouldn't be able to just fire someone because you dislike them. It's just discriminative and it's not fair. People need protections. We need to look not just at now, as I said earlier, but in the future. Like how will how business works, how will that change in the future and so on. But protections are so necessary. It is so unfair that you can just be fired for whatever reason the employer wants. It's not fair. In real life, we have those protections. Why shouldn't we not have them here? There should at least be some protections for some people. It's unfair and just not just that you can just be fired for however you like. There should be protections and a procedure to that. Thank you.
Do I get to respond?
Sure, I'll let you respond here. Go ahead.
Thanks. Look, I understand the want to protect, to protect the employees, but we do need to recognize two things. The second thing just out of my head, wow, that's crazy. We do need to recognize at least one thing, is that these businesses are run by people who want to enjoy running a business. So if you employ someone who you don't like working with, who you don't like talking to, you shouldn't be forced to work with that person. I quite frankly think that that is an absurd notion. And I think that if these people are running businesses, to have fun, because this is the game. People want to have fun, and that boosts our economy. We can't disincentivize employment. That's disincentivizing growth. That's disincentivizing the very thing that new players need to get off the ground. People need to be employed, and we cannot disincentivize that and threaten them with these types of policies. Thank you.
All right, Andy, thank you. See, I have another question. This one's directly for Andy, and Golden, you may respond after if you would like. Andy, your question is from Miss Andrist, and the question is,
Yeah.
See, your history is of a consultant who protects the political interest of whoever pays the most. How can we trust that you have real values or principles?
You can trust I have real values and principles because I'm not being paid in this race. I'm obviously not being paid a dime. I've not only and then said my policies, I've defended them, and I've changed my policies. When I'm a consultant, my clients' policies are the policies are the policies are the policies. They do not change. My goal is to get them done, no matter what that process is. And I've been talking to people throughout my campaign, and I've been learning, and I've been changing my policies. That is something I simply could not do in the private sector. And the other thing is just reputation. I want to serve Redmont, and I want to become a senator. And if I do poorly at that job, the people of Redmont, not only would but should vote me out and put me on my ass. And that's not what I want. I want to serve Redmont. I want to make it better for our community. Thank you for the question.
All right, Golden Dude, did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I can say a little thing, I guess.
You don't have to if you don't want. It's up to you.
I just want to say that I sort of agree with Andy with how we should change our policies to work with the people. At the Workers' Redmont Party, we really want to work with that to make sure that people have forum in our party and we can answer to them and make sure that their concerns are addressed so that we can create legislation to help them and make sure that decisions we make, the people, the constituents who vote for us and so on, they have the ability to make decisions with us and help us work through policy. Thank you.
All right. Well, I'm going to finish up my questions here, and then we'll move on to the community asked ones directly, I believe. Did I get pinged here? I see. So yeah, so the final question from the moderator here, and that's going to be, what do you respect about your fellow candidate? Golden Dude, I'll let you go first here. Unless, yeah.
Well, I respect that Andy has had a pretty good campaign, if to be honest. He's actively campaigned in chat and so on, reaching out to people to help, unlike some of my fellow candidates. They haven't really done much campaigning, but me and Andy, I think we've done lots of campaigning and working, and I respect that Andy has helped do that, his campaigning and advocating for himself. And I think that's really good in our democracy, that we actually have debate and so on to help inform people of who they're voting for. I think that's just a really important thing. And I respect Andy for his effort in doing that and his past experiences. Thank you.
Cool. Perfect. Andy, the question is for you now. What do you respect about your fellow candidate?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for all of that, Golden. And it's funny, me and Golden actually had an exchange. I think it was yesterday. I said good luck to him. I said he was running a great campaign. First of all, he clearly has people rallied behind him. He has supported his party, to his dying breath. He is a loyal party member, and there's no question about that. He's running a fantastic campaign with the people behind him. I've seen his poster, I've seen everything. They're very organized. And I respect him for showing up here today. Almost every candidate didn't. I respect him for engaging in today's debate. I respect a lot of his policies too. We agree on a lot, I'm sure. Although we disagree on execution and details. But I do respect him for every aspect of this campaign that we've seen him go through.
All right. We can go ahead and move on to community questions now. I don't know how you guys want to ask them. We do have a few in the stage VC here, one from Nim and one from Max. I do have a few I got DM'd with as well, so I don't know how you guys want to handle this.
Totally up to you. You can start with the ones in DMs and everything, and in the stage, and then we'll have the people come to the podiums on the sides, for like local chat questions and all that. But it's up to you.
We'll have people line up on the side if anyone wants to do any in-game ones. I have one here from Sleepy. It's a question for both candidates. And they ask, why is it acceptable for people in Senate to have large businesses? Doesn't that take away the idea of representing the people who put those senators in office? Andy, if you would like to start on that.
Yeah. First of all, I think that's a great question. It's an insightful one too, and I want to make this clear. When I am a senator, I am not taking any clients. Of course, I have an obligation to clients that I have, but I will not use my position as senator for them. I will not be lobbying on their behalf. I will not be lobbying their bills. My business and my job will not mix whatsoever. That is an ethical line I am simply not willing to cross. But I think we also need to recognize that Redmont does have a free market, I personally employ people, and big businesses by definition employ a lot of people. And it tends to be where people with larger businesses are more engaged and are knowledgeable in their field. And so I think it's important to allow them to engage in our government whilst not disincentivizing them so heavily. I think personally that is why that mix is somewhat allowed. Great question.
That's time, Golden Dude. The question is for you. Why is it acceptable for people in the Senate to have large businesses? Doesn't that take away from the idea of representing the people who put those senators in office?
Well, I have to say, it's really the people's choice. They should be looking at, if they disagree with someone not having big business and so on, don't vote for them. I just think, just the core part of being a senator and a representative is to work for the people, work for your constituents, and work with them to get policy enacted that will help them. I just think that's really important. Well, it's pretty much impossible to have senators that aren't involved in business and so on, because we are a small nation, and so many of our people, it's not realistic to try and force people. But yeah, I just really think the thing which is important is that we, the senators, not we, but those who are in government work with the people, and we make sure that we address concerns and so on, because this is a democracy and we need to work for the people and work with each other to help make Redmont a better place for everyone. Thanks.
Perfect. I think we have Rory. Did you have a question? Please go ahead. And then I have one more from Kato, and I think we have two in the stage VC. Okay, so they DM me. The question is, so what do you think of the proposed Plot Limitations Act, if you were aware of it? I forgot who I started with last time.
I think I started last. Did I? Yeah, I'm pretty sure I started last time.
Okay, so we'll start with Golden this time then. That's right.
I think.
So the question was, what did you think of the proposed Plot Limitations Act?
I'm sure I saw that law somewhere. I don't actually remember what they're actually saying, what plots they want to limit.
It lowered the limit of plots from if commercial plots went from 50 to 20, I want to say.
Oh yes, I think I remember it. Yeah, I think
I can't remember the spots for the life of me.
Yes. So to clarify, just for the candidates here, the proposed Plot Limitations Act would lower the C plot amount from 50 to 20 and lower the S plot amount from 6 to 4. Those are the only changes in the bill.
I agree. I think I agree with the bill because I think it's really important that we make sure that there's less of a monopoly on those plots. It should be more competition and so on to own plots and make sure that it's more diversified so that more people will have the ability to buy homes and so on. There's so many apartment buildings out there sitting empty with no one there. And we should be incentivizing people to go there and maybe buy those apartments rather than just having them rented and so on. Oh shit, my game just died. Anyway, yeah, that's all I really have to say. I think I support the sentiment around it too. Oh, okay. Yeah, okay, that's all good. That's all I have to say. I was just kicked from the game. Fun.
Andy, the question falls onto you. What do you think of the proposed Plot Limitations Act?
Well, I think the initial version that the WPR proposed was very flawed. They had no provisions for what happened if you were over 20 or over 4. Although I made a suggestion to them, and to their credit, they addressed that. And with that problem addressed, I believe now you have 2 weeks to sell it off after the law's passed if you are over the limit. Yeah, Cato. Yeah, it's been addressed with that. Yeah, I have that right. I made that suggestion. They took it, and with that, I think it's very good. I'm behind the policy. I think it's going to do great things on the demand side. It's going to lower those prices. And with the apartment, I mean, I have an apartment building myself where I give free apartments to new players. So I do think that supply problem is something very, very important that we need to address. Yeah, I support the bill. I support the sentiment behind it. The question is, who can get it passed? I believe I can. Thank you.
And that's time. Let's see. We have one here from Nim from earlier. Let's see. What will you do to make sure property? I'm sorry. Okay, yes. So, what will you do to make sure property taxes are being applied? Currently, companies can split up their properties between people and not pay correct taxes on them. I believe we will start with Anaphase Andy this time.
Well, a big part of my campaign has been saying how we're going to work with the DOC in a lot of these regulations because they have certain regulatory powers that they have not been utilizing. We're going to use the power of the Senate hearing. We're going to use the influence that the senator has. And something we're going to do is we're going to be working with the DOC and we're going to do what we can to, boost up their ranks, get them the people they need, and they're going to start investigating. They're going to start going out and looking for people who are dodging these taxes. They're going to look at the ownership structures of companies. They're going to be looking at who owns what percentage, and what companies own what property. And I think that process, very difficult, and it absolutely will need to be streamlined and improved. That's simply what we may have to do to address dodging these property taxes. We're going to have to look at ownership, and we're going to have to really beef up the DOC and get them confident in making those types of moves.
Thank you. We will move on to Golden Dude for the question. The question was, how will you make sure property taxes are being applied? Currently, companies can split up their properties between people and not pay correct taxes on them.
Well, like Andy said, I agree. We have to invest money and so on into the DOC and invest in them to make sure that they have the ability to enforce the regulations and the powers that they have and they should be using. They probably don't have enough employees or so on to be able to do that. It's too much of a workload for the current employees they already have. Such as increasing wages for DOC people and so on, employees, so that it incentivizes people to go on there and work in that department and so on. And I think we just really need to invest in all the departments with the money that the government has sitting there to help ensure that they do what they need to do to enforce regulations on and do their job. Thank you.
Yeah, Omega. Again, that's going to be with the Senate hearings. We're going to put people before the Senate saying, what the hell are you doing? Why aren't you doing your job? Sorry, Omega had said something in the game. We'll have to address.
So I believe what Omega said was the DOC is inactive as fuck, and he's heard some complaints. Andy had his chance to respond. Golden, would you like to make any comments on that?
No, that's okay.
Understandable. We'll move on. I've seen this question pop up in a couple different ways, I think. Let's see. So I think the concern is mostly how how small businesses will accommodate unions under the WPR's vision, and also this question, which was how does the WPR intend to distinguish employees from independent contractors? Obviously, these questions are a little bit more WPR related, but I do want to open it up a little bit.
Does the WPR have in their Golden in WPR policy? Do they actually have government contractors and subsidies spelled out?
Currently, no. That's why we want to work.
Okay, so that
with
was
people.
new. That was new after that came after the campaign and after we had been talking about all that.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Just making
So I guess the question would be if you do
I think that
get
question
elected
would
as
be more
senator.
applied to me since my campaign has really been centered around government contracting and subsidies to increase employment and lower property prices.
But I think the question is a little bit more in relation to the Workers' Rights Act and how they intend to protect those rights of workers, and how that will be applied onto independents or independent contractors and B2B contracts. So it was a little bit more WPR related, but I do want to open it up to both of you in terms of workers' rights. So Golden Dude, how would you protect workers' rights, and how do independent contractors fit inside of that as well as B2B contracts?
Well, we're thinking that, well, in our policy and so on, nothing is set in stone. We want to work with people and the people who have the knowledge of it, like Annie says we should do as well, that we need to help the people who have the expertise in how to do this. They are involved in making the policy and helping advise us on how to do that. Right now, nothing is set in stone. We are a new party and we want to work on making sure our policies work for everyone and they actually can get enforced and so on. That's why, like, as I said earlier, that investing in departments and so on will help them get more employees and so on, so we can work with them and help them to enforce the policies that we put forward. Independent contractors. But look, I just think the ability to form a union should be to the employees of businesses and so on. Independent contractors, we're still working on that and how to put that into our policy and so on, but we want to work with people so they can raise their concerns and how they want this to work for them and so on. We want to make sure that we work for the people. That's asking them what they want to see with this policy and so on. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Andy, the question is going to move over to you. How do you intend to protect workers' rights, and how are you going to distinguish independent contractors and B2B agreements into that as well?
Well, firstly, I want to say that how happy and proud I am that my fellow candidate has been picking up on so many of my campaign points and has been adapting that. I do want to say that's a very good thing that you're adapting to my campaign. In regards to workers' rights, we need to differentiate between, that's a hard word, between small business, medium business, and large business. The fact is, small to medium businesses around there, they're going to have a hard time dealing with unions. They may not be able to afford it, and it may not even be worth the time, depending on how small it is. If you got one employee, you can't be having a union. That's just not going to work. However, these huge businesses that are employing 10 different people, those are going to definitely benefit from unions. They're going to benefit from those types of laws. I think something that WPR hasn't addressed yet, other than my campaign points, and other than adopting my campaign points, is that differentiation and the importance thereof. Thank you.
Okay. I have a question, a DM here from Kato. Let's see, we'll start with Andy on this one now. How do you plan to actually implement your policies? This is a lot of theory, but I haven't heard anything about how you want to implement them. The Senate doesn't typically propose ideas, but checks them.
Yeah, first of all, amazing question. I'm hoping that Golden realizes that as well. The reason I was so sure about proposing policies is because, again, my entire DC career has been passing bills from outside the chamber, outside of Congress. I have never needed to be a congressman to affect legislation. And what I'm going to do as a senator is I'm going to take my experience. I'm going to take what I've been doing. I'm going to take the mountains of success that we've seen there, and we're going to add on the influence and the vote of being a senator. And we are going to put the Senate back to work. We're going to start getting things done like that. I've gotten bills passed in the House. I've gotten bills changed and amended and stopped in both chambers. And the fact of the matter is that is what I am specialized to do, and that is what I'm going to do best. I think that's what differentiates me between my fellow candidates.
All right, Andy, thank you. The question is going to move over to Golden Dude now, and the question was, how do you plan to implement your policies? This is a lot of theory, but I haven't heard anything about how you want to implement them. The Senate doesn't typically propose ideas, but checks them.
Well, it's the people in. We have our representatives, well, Miss Andrus and so on, in the House of Representatives, and of course, we're going to work with them to make sure that. I just want to make sure that people are able to come with me to the questions and so on, so that we can work with the people in our party who are proposing bills and so on to amend them and so on, change them, as Andy does and so on. I acknowledge that he has lots of experience in doing this himself, but I think it's really important to make sure that new players and so on are able to get involved in these decisions and so on. Like me, I'm a relatively new player, but I think it's really important to have new players and so on in government so they can learn their way how to do this and so on, and make sure that we are growing DC with so new players know how to get involved in government and so on, and they can do that. Thank you.
All right. I did get another DM question here. This one's about another bill that's in the Senate. So this is another question from Rory. The bill is the Getting Out of 20 Seconds Isn't Okay Act. This bill adjusts the percentages of the stone, coal, iron, gold, and diamond inside of the mine, as well as reducing the amount of time you get when mining. So the question is, what do you think about this act? We'll start with Golden Dude.
I agree with this act completely. I think we should. Criminals who are arrested for their crime, they shouldn't be able to just escape, not escape, serve their time in like a few minutes. I know that committing crimes and so on is an important part of roleplay in our server, but they shouldn't just be able to do it. I know it's not that big of an increase, but it can still be important to help just give a bit more so that people are less incentivized to do crimes. But it's just with this crisis and so on, we really need to be like implementing legislation, I guess, to help stop so that there's less people killing people around spawn and so on. And I guess we need to teach new players and so on how the law works and such. I just think it's a good bill. Thank you. Like
Andy, the question. I'm sorry?
No, it was nothing. Sorry.
Okay. Sorry. So, Andy, the question is, what do you think of the Getting Out of Jail in 20 Seconds Act? Or, sorry, Getting Out of Jail in 20 Seconds Isn't Okay Act.
I mean, just earlier today, we saw mass murder, right? And the fact of the matter is, murder is just not disincentivized enough. Not only do I want you to spend longer in jail, I think we should increase the fees as well and increase the punishments and make murder an actual crime, because right now it's a minor inconvenience for everybody involved. And I think that's just not that's not feasible or plausible for people every day-to-day gameplay. It's annoying, right? Especially if you don't have like a slash home command to get where you are and you got to come all the way back from the hospital. That's a real pain. That Rory just put it wonderfully. Murder isn't a crime. It's a hobby at this point. Hobbies are expensive, but even this one is cheap, right? We need to increase the fines. We need to increase the prison time, and we need to lower what mining does for you to get you out.
All right. Thank you, Andy. I think we're going to wrap this up with this final question here, because I'm tired of asking questions, and I think people are tired of being here.
Mhm.
How do you plan on How do you plan to keep the Senate active and doing its job? That will start with you, Andy.
Firstly, that's a fantastic question, and this has been what my entire campaign has been on. And I've said this. I said this before. I'll say it again. This is what I've done for the entirety of my time on DC. It's been lobbying. It's been whipping votes. It's been applying political pressure. And the fact of the matter is, that is what the Senate needs right now: political pressure. I'll be working with senators to write legislation and then getting them to work with representatives to get that legislation passed. We're going to be working with senators to make change. We're going to be calling senators out who aren't participating in hearings. I mean, it was either today or yesterday. It's all a mix. Just earlier, I was questioning a justice who had been nominated to the Supreme Court. And I believe I was the only one who had asked questions. I'm not even a senator yet. And I'm the only one who asked a full line of questioning to the justice. And that is something we will solve by calling these senators out, applying the pressure they need applied, and by doing our job and putting the Senate back to work.
All right. Thank you, Andy. I don't know if I mentioned this question was from Nexus Gate, and the question is, how do you plan to keep the Senate active in doing its job, Golden Dude?
Well, like Andy said, he's got some very good points there. We need to make sure that, I think we just really need more incentive or something. We need to make sure that everyone in Congress is actually getting active and voting on all bills, so they're actually there. What's the point of being in government when you're just going to sit there and ignore doing the functions which you're actually supposed to do, which the people gave to you? Lots of people, I'm not going to get out names, but they just sit there and they just vote no or yes or so on, but they don't actually do anything other than that in the government. We really need to have that activeness and so on, and collaboration, so that people are actually working to make change in government and make sure that laws are getting passed and so on, so that we can actually have change instead of senators just sitting there on their ass. And same for congressmen. Thank you.
Yeah, I was actually working on a bill, and I asked a senator, "Hey, Mr. Senator, what do you think about this bill? Where are you standing?" And he said no comment. He wouldn't tell a constituent how he stood on a bill. I think that is something that we need to call out. Cop Top wouldn't tell his constituents how he stood on a bill. I think that's outrageous. And I think we ought to start applying the pressure that we need to apply to get them to start doing their job.
Okay. Well, that is the end of the debate. If the candidates would like to stick around for a Q&A or whatever else, that's whatever, but I will be done asking and answering questions and keeping time. Thank you for joining, everyone. Golden from the WPR and ANFA is Andy, running as an independent. This has been a great one. Thank you, everybody.